Howdy. Welcome in. Happy Friday the 13th. I was teasing that I might have a surprise for the live stream. It's over my shoulder right there. We'll dive into that in a minute. It's a hot as hell evening, humid August on Cape Cod. Our temperatures don't usually get up as high as the rest of the country, I guess. But today, woo, it was real feel was 102 at one point. So I had no desire to go out and really enjoy the heat. So I stayed inside in the AC. Hopefully all of you stayed cool. Tomorrow it's supposed to be hot most of the day again, but down here, at least, Cape Cod, most of New England, we're supposed to get thunderstorms that'll clear the humidity out and drop the temperature a little, and it's all we can hope for. Like I always say, I love fall's my favorite season. Summer is my third favorite, so the heat and humidity are not my friends. I have the Scandinavian blood in me, so I run hot anyway. Anything above 75, I hate. But then I also hate super cold winter, so I don't know where I could live. So, welcome into number 24th Without a Map podcast live stream for the In My Footsteps podcast. So, this week was episode 32. It all fit in as far as the theme of it. Friday the 13th was kind of a lucky break, but episode 32, I'm trying not to dive too deep into true crime and supernatural and oddities, etc. At least not all at once, because I need to parcel these out for the podcast. There's plenty of crazy ones that I've heard about and I'm going to share, but they got to be spaced out. So this week, episode 32, it just went up yesterday. Anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, anyone who's an Apple podcast listener, please go and give me a good review. Some jackass gave me a 1-star review, and I don't know why. I don't know what about my podcast would make it a 1-star, unless they just hate everything about Cape Cod. But yeah, that was kind of a kick to the nuts where I was like, oh man, why don't you like my stuff? But I think being a content creator, you kind of got to get used to that. I've got podcasts, live stream, YouTube videos, blogs, everything. So I guess not everyone's going to like what I do. But yeah, getting a 1-star review was kind of a crappy start to yesterday. But go check out episode 32 because it starts off with a story of this person here, Lizzie Borden. If you're not from New England, I guarantee you know who she is anyway. You know the rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Now, my whole thing is, did she really do that? So these murders occurred around this time, first week of August, 1892, in Fall River. Lizzie Borden has always been the main suspect. She was arrested, she was tried for it, but she was ultimately acquitted because they couldn't find a murder weapon or any blood evidence that had to do with her. So she technically in the court of law is innocent of the crimes, but nobody else was ever even a suspect ever in the murders of her father and stepmother. So, I mean, that's all up to, the people out there, what you think. Now, for me, I think she did it. And the reason why is that there was circumstantial evidence. She and her sister Emma, no relation to you, Emma, in the chat. She actually had a sister, Emma. She and her sister Emma were irritated that her father, Andrew, and her stepmother, they had a lot of money. Andrew Borden had a lot of money, equal to at least $7 million in today's money. And all he basically did was stash it away. So Lizzie and her sister basically were like, why can't we spend money and have like a better house and have better everything? And so it kind of drove them nuts. So the whole murder itself is pretty nasty, and I debated showing crime scene photos, but I didn't. You'll have to look them up yourselves because it's wicked gross. There's actually photos of her father on the couch with his face just destroyed by a hatchet. And essentially, what ended up happening is just my sister Ashley pointed out in the chat, and I was getting to it. You got ahead of me. And so the story is that Emma Borden saw her sister burning this blue dress, and it's kind of suspicious. Like, what were you burning your dress for? There was also a hatchet found in the basement of the home, and interestingly, there was no blood found on it, but fingerprint technology was around at the time. It was in its infancy, so the police didn't really trust the results, so they didn't even do it. They didn't even do any fingerprint analysis on it. So in the court of law, Lizzie Borden was acquitted. In the court of public opinion, not so much. She was heckled and teased and pranked and shunned by the community. It didn't help that as soon as her father was in the grave, she got some inheritance, and she and her sister bought this huge mansion on the hill in Fall River. It's like they immediately started spending their father's money. But the Lizzie Borden house, the actual house where the murders took place in Fall River, is a bed and breakfast. And it was interesting, another Facebook account that I follow, a bigger one, they actually were sharing about the bed and breakfast, and I said, wow, I just did that for my podcast. And they were like, ooh, we'll have to listen. And I was like, here's a link. I threw it right in their comments. But you can stay there. I never had the guts to spend the night there because it's supposed to be haunted. If you watch BuzzFeed Unsolved, one of their early seasons, Ryan and Shane spend the night there, and you hear things. I went and took a tour there and definitely felt some stuff, especially in the bedroom where their stepmother was murdered. Like, you can feel stuff in there, and it's just pretty freaky. Yes, Emma, BuzzFeed Unsolved, they just finished their final true crime season, and now they're doing their final supernatural one is coming up. So you better watch it while you can. So that was the Lizzie Borden story. That's the main one as far as episode 32 goes. Now, on the podcast, for anyone that's never listened to it, I do a main story. I do road trips. I do nostalgia. I call it back in the day. I do top 5 lists. You see Jason over my shoulder for Friday the 13th. So anyone that has listened to the podcast before or been on these live streams as I've gone along, episode 11 of the podcast, I talk about when we used to play Manhunt growing up in the old neighborhood that I grew up in back in the 80s. And the story goes that I always liked to be the one that was the hunter. So everyone else would go and hide out in the neighborhood, and you get like 5 minutes to hide. It'd be like how it is out now, basically dark. But back in the 80s and early 90s, you could hide in people's yards and not worry about the cops getting called. But I would be the hunter, and I would wear this exact mask. So if you haven't heard the story behind it, so you see this here, there's a crack between the eyes. So story goes, there was a younger girl that probably 4 or 5 years younger than me that was playing. I'm not going to name names, but family in the chat know who it is. And she was terrified to play. And so we wanted her to feel comfortable, so we gave her a golf club, like as a weapon to cling on to, because my whole thing playing Manhunt was I would jump out and scare you, and that was the death. Grab you, and all right, you're caught. Go back and sit on the front step until the game's over. And this girl, she was so scared, and I thought it'd be funny to sneak up and scare her. And I snuck up behind her in the dark, and I grabbed her, She screamed, she turned, she swung the golf club and hit me right between the eyes with it and cracked the mask. And that, so the mask, you can see it's this, I sealed it up with super glue to fix it. But yeah, that's the actual, that thing is over 30 years old. It was a glow in the dark blank hockey mask with just these holes here and the ones up top. And I did the rest to make it look like Jason. So yeah, that's the story behind that. Go listen to episode 11 if you haven't, and you'll get the full effect of what Manhunt was like. Last week I started doing the week-by-week review of my big road trip that I did in 2019. I did Hudson, New York. This week I decided, well, I didn't decide. It was right on time. So this was the map, basically. You can't really see it, but that's kind of the circle that I did. 6 days, 2,100 miles, and that was pretty good. So what I did was I went to Scranton, Pennsylvania, home of the office, and my box is in front of the photo there. That's from Alfredo's Pizza Cafe, the good one. Home of the good pizza as seen on The Office. I took photos and such when I was in there, and I actually ate the pizza. Was really good. It's too bad. This is in their menu. Anyone who's fans of The Office, that is really what you go there for. I feel bad because there's more to see in Scranton than just places from The Office, but that's why I went there, so I'm sure that's why a lot of people go there. So I went there to Alfredo's Pizza, and that was good. I went to Poor Richard's Pub, which it just says Pooh Richard, so that's a different brand. And inside Poor Richard's Pub, they actually have their own Dundie Award, and they had these little plastic cups from Poor Richard's for sale. I bought a couple. Ashley got one. She got a Dundie too. I didn't buy myself a Dundie, so that shows you something. But I got all my kinds of... I had a drink at Poor Richard's and went to Alfredo's Pizza and the Steamtown Mall, and I saw the Scranton sign, which is there. That's what you see at the beginning of The Office, like right at the beginning. And so that's inside I think it's called the Marketplace at Steamtown now, but it was the Steamtown Mall, and it's on the second floor, and everyone goes and takes a picture with it. And they've got the backdrop like where it would have been, so you can see like highway exits and such. No, there's no Vance refrigeration. The actual like Dunder Mifflin and stuff is not, there's no real building to go see. That whole thing is fictional. The only thing that came close is there's a Mifflin Avenue right near the Steamtown Mall. So I thought that was interesting. But you can hear about that on the podcast, Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm going in the order of the big places I stopped at. So episode 33 is going to be Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is the state capital. So that'll be pretty interesting. I've been gathering info about it. But I'm just going in the order that I saw them. Because I don't want it to be like I highlight all my favorite ones first, and then it's like, well, here's another town that I didn't really like, but you can hear about it. But it's a lot of fun to relive these moments, because the road trip I did only a few months before COVID made every day Friday the 13th for the last year and a half. Also, so this is a good one. I made this just, oh no, my face is over it. So I did top 5 favorite Boston athletes of my lifetime, and I picked, so the top 5s are never in any particular order because it's hard enough. I mean, you can see, well, 3 of the 5. I'll name them all, don't worry. But I started watching sports in 1985, so I picked who were my favorites from then to now. And interestingly, Tom Brady is like an honorable mention. I know people are going to flip, but I grew up in the 80s. So I had Andre Tippett from the Patriots as the top corner. You can't see him with his helmet. The one that my face is over is Pedro Martinez. And then we got Roger Clemens, who that didn't age well because he became a steroid cheat later on. And Rodney Harrison and Larry Bird. So I do them every week, top fives. They're always random. I try to make it where each one is so different from the one before and the one after. So favorite Boston athletes here is a lot different than next week. It's going to be top 5 obsolete technology of my lifetime. Basically what it is, it's things that I grew up with that I'm not shocked that they're gone, but it's like you never think when you're growing up that as far like this, a smartphone that I'm using right now for this live stream. Seeing it now, this will be obsolete probably before I'm dead. So I'll look back at whatever's new and say, wow, remember when I had to actually hold a smartphone instead of having like Google implanted in my eyes or something so I can see like the Terminator? So, yes, well, rotary telephone is definitely on there. I put like telephone in general, but it's easy to come up with obsolete technology. Just go back to when you were a kid and think of what you used to use, what you used to do. So, yeah, rotary phones. I mean, Walkmans, CD Discmans, audio cassettes, even things that you don't think of like floppy disks for computers or the card catalogs in the library, things like that I grew up with where it's like, man, whatever happened to those? But yeah, that's coming next week. Episode 33. I try to make I give each one a little card so that each one looks unique. Episode 33, you can see that there's kind of another creepy vibe. That was not intentional, that I did Lizzie Borden, and then the next week it's another supernatural one. But the story that's coming up next week, it's Dummerston, Vermont, is a little town that is kind of near Brattleboro. And basically, I don't want to spoil it all, but the story is that this goes back a couple of hundred years, that basically there was a family plot in the cemetery, Dummerston Center Cemetery. Say that 5 times fast. And essentially there was a vine growing along the ground. And each time it touched these graves weren't filled. It was like someone had bought a family plot and kind of like predicted, like, there'll be 6 of us, so here's all the gravestones. And basically every time the vine it got to a point where it touched a stone, someone in the family would die. And so they basically like chopped the vine up and burned it. But that's one of those weird stories that I found when doing my initial research for the podcast. I spent 6 weeks just researching, going state by state for New England and finding famous stories, famous people, the different towns, but then also weird, unusual stories and like true crime. So I always say, I have enough info that I've researched that I could do the podcast for 4 years with no problem. And it's true. Like, I'll go through stuff and be like, oh, I forgot about that. That's where the Dummerston vine came in. I'm like, what the hell is that? And I looked it up and I said, oh, that's a good one. I'll throw that in. So that's coming next week. So I had the other night, I had my first in-person book event in 18 months. So this was the Aptuxet Trading Post is in Bourne, right on the canal. And so they've got don't worry, Sarp, I see you there. I'm easily distracted. So if I start talking to the chat, then it's like I just totally lose what I'm doing, which is fun. But I have all this cool stuff. I have all these photos lined up to share. One is this. So the Aptuxet Trading Post, the reason why we did this event was that we were outside but inside. This was an old pool enclosure that a family donated to the Aptuxet Trading Post. what they did was they used it to make a kind of outdoor pavilion. It was just the coolest vibe where the lights were all strung up along it, you can see, and there's the big screen TV in the back that has my book cover like this. And it was a lot of fun to actually talk in front of people. I had this great plan that I was going to finish the talk and be able to walk out to the canal and get this beautiful sunset shot. And as soon as I pulled into the Patuxent trading post, the fog rolled in. That's just lovely. You gotta be kidding me. But yeah, so I had my setup. This is how it typically looks with the books lined up. There was, so these cards that I keep holding up, I got these like postcards from my publisher that they're pretty sweet. I just give them away at events because it's like a soft sell. Like I bring books, and if you don't want to buy them, I'd rather you take my business card or one of these postcards of the book cover, just in case. You never know. But yeah, it was a good time. I've done 4 Zoom events for my newest book, including one last night with the Eldridge Library in Chatham. And they're fun, and they're easier because I have my PowerPoint presentation up, and rather than talking face to face with people, all they see is the PowerPoint, so I can literally read off note cards. I even had my book. I just read a chapter of the book. That killed some time, but it was fun. I'm hoping to do more in the fall, but I mean, God only knows. So I was glad to get that one, but it's been a while. I've done so many of those events in the past for all my other books, and I said that one the other night is going to be one of my favorites because of the atmosphere of being outside with it. It was cooler that night. It wasn't 80 degrees and humid, but just having that feel. And so yeah, that was good. As far as I was talking at the beginning about content creation, about how that jackass gave me a 1-star review on Apple Podcasts. So speaking of content creation, this last week was the 60th anniversary of the Cape Cod National Seashore. I did this really nice video celebrating it that's up on YouTube. Everything I do has the In My Footsteps name, so they're kind of easy to find. That's why I did it. It's like product name. And so the video is about 10 minutes. I use all of my own photos to kind of celebrate what makes the seashore so special. And so, I mean, it's got good music, but if you go check it out, that's great. But otherwise, you know, it goes all the way from Long Point in Provincetown. It's 43,000 acres of protected land that I always feel lucky to live on Cape Cod, to be able to go and visit a place like the National Seashore basically whenever I want. I could go out there now in the dog days of summer where this place is filled beyond its max, and I could still find a place where there's nobody. Now granted, it might be full woods with ticks, but still there'd be nobody else there. But I wanted to share the seashore and different photos. Some of these photos are obviously, they're in the actual video, but it's like showcasing. Obviously there's no compass on the ground at the seashore. I brought that. That is my grandpa's compass that I bring kind of with me some places to shoot because it's a cool little prop to have. So I included that in there. That's Race Point Lighthouse. So hopefully you all go and you check out the National Seashore, and just, you don't have to see it all. You don't have to walk the beach like Henry David Thoreau did. But it's definitely worth it if you don't like being out, like hiking in nature and stuff. You can just go to the beach and know that you're there, and that it's pretty much how it's always been, except there's far fewer feet of beach because of erosion, which is a damn shame, but I mean, what are you going to do? So that was 60 years ago this week. August 7th, 1961 was when the seashore was created by President Kennedy, and it made me want to. Hi, Keith. Don't worry. I saw you. I'm like, I have all these photos I put together to try to make this seem so professional. So yeah, that was the National Seashore. And so, like I said, happy Friday the 13th for people to just pop in and see this over my shoulder. My famous Jason mask that it's all cracked. That thing is over 30 years old. So just imagine that. And I used to wear it and chase people down the street playing hide and seek at night with that actual mask on. And I've got it tacked to the wall. I'm not taking it down to wear it because then this crosses over into weird territory. It's bad enough that I still have that thing. So interestingly, 5 years ago today, I actually ran. Oh God, it cut my head off. That's just yay. 5 years ago today, I ran 2 races on the same day, and I actually won the first one. That's the one. Boy, that's terrible because the reason why I wanted to show you all this is that I had a mohawk that I shaved into my head, you can see. But in the first race, I had regular, like, dark brown hair mohawk. And in the second race, where I have no head, I bleached it. I put peroxide in the mohawk, so it's, like, bright white. How are you going to know? I'm headless. So I was looking at things keep popping up in my memories on Instagram, on Facebook of my running past. And for those of you that know me, you know that it's been several years. I haven't run a race in 4 years. That's coming up, the anniversary of that. And since I started working at the chiropractor's office as a trainer, the boss there, he's been working with me trying to, I'm going to move that since you can't see my head at all. But he's been helping me kind of fix my injuries. What I ended up finding out was he put these special orthotics in my regular sneakers. They're over there. I'm not going to go get them. But they're like high tech and expensive. And what happened was I put them in my shoes and he said, how do they feel? And I said, boy, they're really pressing up into my arch, especially on my left foot. And he said, yeah, that's because you got fallen arches. And I said, could that be from running a lot? And could that kind of create an ankle injury? And he said, oh, yeah. So I've been wearing these special... did you see? So I don't know if anyone saw the preview where I did the countdown for when I was going live. And I had the Jason from the Nintendo game when he was like green. But he was doing the machete. And the Friday the 13th, Kate, you'll know this, Friday the 13th Part 3 music with, like, the disco beat. I put it in there, and it was going to the beat of him chopping, and I just watched it laughing for, like, 5 minutes because he was just slicing to the beat of the song, and I said, oh, my God, it was great. You got to go afterwards, go watch it and just laugh. But, yeah, Jason Mask, Kate, you remember this. You were part of the Manhunt games. But yeah, so I've been getting back into running slowly and keeping my miles down, but it's been half-assed because due to like not running, and the last couple of years have been definitely like a book all in itself. Since the beginning of 2019, it's been like a new chapter and not a great one. You know, COVID caused a lot of weight gain and I've been dropping some, but I've been going half-assed where I still... like I'll run a little, but then I'll eat like crap like I've been doing basically for the last couple years. It's like stress eating. So today, I finally decided, I went out and I bought my first new pair of running shoes in over 3 years. That's how you know. I said, I got to get serious about the actual running and health and fitness and such. So I went to Marathon Sports. These are Brooks Ghost 14. I had a gift card, which helped. And, you know. But yeah, so this is how you know that now things got real. I actually got new running shoes that I'm going to start breaking in tomorrow. So hopefully, in fitness, in training, I tell people it's always good to have a long-term goal and a short-term goal. You know, something you want to do right now that you can measure, and something that's, oh, hopefully in time I can do this. So my short-term goal is to be able to run more and not re-injure myself. So that should be easy because I'm listening to my body and listening to my boss, who's a really good chiropractor. Like, I can't recommend him enough to anyone that needs it. He's like this guy that he could have his own reality show. So I don't want to embarrass him too much, but he's late 40s, but he surfs, he plays guitar, he's got surfboards all over his office, and he's into, you know, all kinds of fitness stuff, but he's holistic as well, and he's got a personality that it's infectious. Like, I worked at a place before, a retirement home, where it was just a garbage fire of, you know, inept people and toxic work environment, and it rubs off on you if you're around like terrible people and people that are bad at their job. You kind of just like assimilate. So when you're around someone that is always positive and knows what they're doing and is appreciative of you, it rubs off on you. And so, and he also has, so I don't know what it's called, but it looks like a hoverboard, but with a big wheel in the middle. It's like a skateboard body with a big wheel, and you ride it and you turn it on, and if you push down in the front, it goes faster, and if you put your foot in the back, your heel down, it slows down. I don't know what it's called, but he got that for his birthday, an early birthday present, and he'll ride it into the office. He was riding it around the office a couple days ago, and it's like I'm on a reality show. He'll just come zooming through the gym on this, it looks like a, so yeah, it's just like, I don't know. But yeah, so I got the shoes. I'm going to start going for that. So we'll see. Hopefully in the spring, my long-term goal is to actually run a race again and kind of get to where I was a few years ago. But we'll see. Whether I do or not, at least I have a goal. And that's good. You got to have a goal to chase. If you don't, you're just like a boat without a sail, kind of going where the water takes you. So definitely go and check out the podcast if you haven't. If you're seeing this after I'm live on Instagram, it goes up on IGTV. Hopefully, if things go well, it'll be up on YouTube. Last week there was a problem, so it was not. But on YouTube, I put timestamps in because, as you can tell, I go all over the place, and I'm just, you know, I'm like a dog seeing a squirrel. Oh, speaking of that, so I was out for a run the other day. I was up in Eastham running the bike trail, and I ran out, like I parked and ran out as far as I could run, and then I said, then I'll walk back, and it's like you're getting an extra workout, but you're not killing yourself running. And it's like the middle of nowhere on the bike trail, and I look to my right, and coming out of the woods, I'm like, oh God, there's something coming, like some animal, and it ended up being a fluffy black cat, but it was carrying a squirrel in its mouth and just went right across the bike trail in front of me. I was like, oh, only to me would something like that happen, where it's just like random to see that. But I enjoy that. Family knows I say my life is like an episode of Seinfeld, where the most random stuff goes on and everyone's like, yep, that fits. That's, yep. Like next week at my job at the chiropractor's office, we're closed, but I'm going in to train people. So I've got a key to the office to go in and just, I have all my clients are stacked, so I go in and train them and leave. But what I'm going to end up doing is, while I'm there, I'm going to work out. There's massage chairs there. So Dr. Mike, who's the boss, he's like, yeah, it's your gym. You do what you want. I told him, I said, I'm not going to like punch out after I work out. It'll be after I train people. But I'm going to like hang out there by myself in the massage chair for like an hour and just sleep. Something will probably happen. Like we've got a bee's nest inside one of the vents outside, which it's not like there's other businesses on the property So it's more their problem. But yeah, we've got a yellow jacket nest where you see them crawling up in the vent, and they don't bother anyone, but they get inside. Every now and then, a yellow jacket will be flying around down this hallway, and I'm like, oh man, here we go. But nothing ever really comes from it. So I'm looking at photos here. So remember, episode 32 is now live. It's doing pretty well. It's not episode 30, which was about my friend Matt Medeiros. That's already in my top 5 most downloaded episodes ever, and it's only been out for 3 weeks. So I don't expect this one to catch it. Well, maybe it would. But hopefully if you enjoy it, you spread the word no matter where you listen to it at, whatever platform. The best thing that can happen for a content creator is for people to like it. You know, if it's YouTube, give a thumbs up, or a podcast, to share it, give a positive review. Like I said, it kind of bummed me out when I got a 1-star review on Apple, and I haven't gone to see who it is because I don't know if it's like someone from the past that just doesn't like me. But either way, I have to get used to, it's like the saying, the further up the ladder you go, the more the light shines on you. So it's like, fine. If you don't like my podcast, don't listen. But if you do, share it, spread the word. I'm always looking for ideas. I've got enough research for 4 years, but if there's something I'm missing, I'm always looking to embarrass myself with stories from the past. So, I mean, that's next week's episode is all about when we first got cable and the rise of cable television and Cape Cod Cablevision. That's pretty interesting. If I asked everyone out there when you thought cable, or at least people that grew up on Cape Cod, when you thought cable first came to Cape Cod, when would you say? Because for me, I always thought cable was late 1970s to early 80s. But it turns out that Cape Cod Cablevision was created in 1966, which just blew my mind. So I'm like, I didn't know it was that old. But yeah, I'll dive more into that, the original channels and things like that. That's coming next week. But yeah, I can't say enough about how much sharing the podcast and positive reviews really help. 90, no, we had cable when I was 8 years old, I think. We got cable in like 1985. And it was already around for 20 years then, but it was like basic cable. So like the Boston channels that, you know, you still get. Oh yeah, and coming up, like I said, every 4th episode is a shorter bonus episode, because I use up the remainder of my minutes on my monthly plan. And so this one, like, they always seem to be like more serious topics. So I wanted to do something that would be more funny, where I could just like go off on a chapter of life. So it's going to be about my year that I landscaped, like the season that I did it and all the hijinks and just what goes into landscaping, because I feel a lot like the hospitality industry, that landscaping, it's like it's looked down on almost. Like, oh, you work, you know, cooking, or you work as a server, or you work landscaping, you must be, you know, not able to do anything else. But I've done restaurant, I've done landscaping, and basically it's like when you realize the stuff that goes in, like imagine a day like this outside. On Cape Cod, it was 90 with the heat index of over 100. I had several days like this that I worked landscaping in the hot sun with no protection. And it's like, I never want to go. That's why I only worked 1 season landscaping, because it was tough work. My buddy Steve, he does his own on the side. Like, he has his own side clients like I do with personal training. And every now and then, if he asks me if I could help him, I'm like, oh God, it's like PTSD with my time. I mean, I got 2 concussions and a separated shoulder and almost heat stroke. And that's from one summer. Like, why would I want to keep doing that? Kate, you remember you remember the company. I don't know if I'm going to name the name of the company when I do the episode, just in case they listen, because I'm not going to paint a glowing review of how it was run. It's going to be kind of like, yeah, inept is another. Although he wasn't the worst boss I ever had. That might have been the last boss I had at the retirement home. He was pretty much garbage, but yeah, so hopefully everyone stayed cool today and tomorrow, and I can't wait for fall. Although that speeds up my time, as I've mentioned before, I'm in the market for a new place to live. So, I mean, it's not very stressful. I'm finding some hits, but it's interesting. I have actually come to the point where I am actually more surprised when a listing on Craigslist is not a scam. If you want some laughter, just go to property rentals on Craigslist and look at some of the crap in there. All you have to do is read. It's like listing after listing. That's like when you would get the spam emails that would say you won $10 million that are all spelling mistakes and like crap like that. I go in there and it's like, one place I looked at, it was in French, but it says it's in Bourne, but then it says it's close to the subway, and I'm like, there's no subway on Cape Cod, you idiots. So yeah, it's funny, but it's, not great, because I'll find places that look great, and I'm like, it's too good to be true, and it ends up being that way. But yeah, if you want to laugh, go on Craigslist. It's another dumpster fire. So, thank you all for tuning in. I've kind of cycled through all of my talking points, the podcast, checking it out, the videos on YouTube. Hopefully when it hits fall and there's less people around, I'll get back to 4K New England. It's just been tough because I'm working on my training, the new job. Podcast takes up time. I'm also working on a new book, but that's still a little bit hush. I need an agent first. But that's a big project that I'm working on, and hopefully once all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, I can unleash what it is. But until then, it's just another thing on my plate, but I can't talk about it much. Most of the people in the chat that are, family and such, they know the truth, but I'll keep it at that. I'll keep you in suspense. So yeah, if you go to the podcast, like it, share it, shoot me an email or a message if you've got any ideas or comments or anything. I'm trying, like, the purpose of this live stream is like, yeah, it's a nice kind of meeting place on a Friday night, but it's also like a way to connect with people that maybe have never heard of the podcast or have never, seen my face before or things like that. And it's a way to kind of engage and grow the audience, because the audience, my trajectory with the podcast, it's like, it's a slow and steady climb, which is great. It makes me glad that I have enough stuff to get through 4 years, because it seems like you got to have enough of a product. You can't have like 5 episodes and if it doesn't take off, you're done. I've got enough that I could do 200. So if you like it, you're going to be stuck with it for a few more years at least. If you hate it, whatever, just don't listen. I'll make a second podcast that is all about people that don't like my first podcast. So stay cool. I'm going to go back into where the AC is. Where I'm at now with the mask hanging, there's no AC. You feel all the humidity. But I like it because it's got this backdrop kind of works, and it was a nice place to hang the mask up. I might leave that up there for a little while so that if I come in like at night or something, I'll see it and get scared. So there's, at my job, the boss, he's got a skeleton and he's got an actual like spine that he uses it for showing people what he's doing or why he's doing it and such. And this is in the gym. He's got this skeleton in there. So Tuesday night when I left there, I wheeled him out towards the middle of the gym because there's a guy that comes in early, like 6:30 in the morning. He's a friend of the boss, and he works out in the gym like before I get there. And so I put that there so that when he walked in to flip the lights on, there was just a skeleton standing in there. He did not seem to be too thrilled when I showed up, so he probably got spooked but didn't want to tell me. But eventually he loosened up. He's a nice guy, but it was too much to pass up on. So yeah, that's a perfect fitting end to the live stream on Friday the 13th, is me having a staring contest with the skeleton. But stay tuned for episode 33 on Thursday again. I'll be back with another live stream next week. Hopefully you have a great weekend. Stay cool. Sunday's supposed to be a great day. If you can get outside and not pass out from the heat, definitely do it. And until then, I will talk to you all next week, if not sooner. So enjoy the weekend and enjoy the rest of the Friday evening. Later, everybody.